Hey guys, Joe Perea, GA Fabrication and T-Mod6 Racing, and today I'm going to show you how to narrow a set of these bad boys, pin tires, most popular tire in comp crawling. I know when I first started and I wanted a pair of narrowed pins, I had no idea how to do it, and so I paid somebody to do it, but I'm telling you guys can do it. I know you can. So take a few minutes, watch this video, and you can always send me a PM if you have a question. But don't be afraid, man. We can cut these babies up. Here we go. Okay, guys, here's your standard pin tire, straight out of the box, unmutilated. So there's two different versions of a narrowed tire. There's a regular narrow tire, and there's an ultra narrow tire. So the first one we're going to talk about is a regular narrowed tire. So you can see there's two rows going across with two different numbers of pins. In the long row across you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in the not as long row you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So for a regular narrowed tire you will have a total of 6 pins going across it on the long row. Okay? So that means we're basically deleting the center pin out of the tire. So the easiest way for me to remember how to do this is I go to the shorter row, the one that has 6 pins, and I come in 1, 2 and a half. And then from the other side I come in 1, 2 and a half. So basically we would cut this center strip right out of this tire just by cutting right through this center, through this pin, through the center of the pin all the way around the tire, and on this side as well. And so that'll give us that particular width of a strip, and then we'll go ahead and glue the tire back together. So that would be the strip for a regular narrow. So if you're going for an extra narrow, or ultra narrow I should say, we're actually going to be counting off this long row. So right now we have 7 pins going across. When we're done with it, we're going to want a total of 5 pins going across for an ultra narrow. So 1, 2 and a half in, 1, 2 and a half in, and so when we're all said and done we'll have 2.5 pins on this side and 2.5 pins on this side for a total of 5 pins going across this wide row. Okay, so you can see that the two different widths will determine whether you're regular narrow or ultra narrow. Hopefully you can see that differentiation there. So let's go ahead and start cutting. So before we actually start cutting, I just wanted to mention one thing. So we are going for the ultra narrow here, so we're 2.5 pins in, we're 2.5 pins in. Depending on your confidence in cutting directly through the center of these pins and not going off course, you may want to go ahead and mark them. So the first few times I did this, I went ahead and marked all these pins so I knew exactly which ones I was cutting through, and I didn't go off course. But basically when we cut, we want to hit right through the center of this pin all the way around. So as you get better at it and as you do it a few more times, you probably don't even need to make these marks. You can just go ahead and dive in with the scissors from the center here and just go ahead and cut all the way around. But your first couple times you might want to make those marks just to give yourself another level of confidence there. Okay guys, moment of truth. I know this is where everybody gets a little bit freaked out. You got a brand new tire, you're just about to slice and dice it up, but don't sweat it, man. If you make a mistake, it's super easy to correct with these things. Just a little bit of glue and a little bit of patience and you'll be fine. So again, we're going to be cutting out this center strip. Usually the way I like to start this is, I just take an X-Acto and I just poke a hole about right there, and this just lets your scissors get in there cleanly. I particularly like to use straight scissors. Some guys like curved scissors, but I find that with the straight ones you can make long, straighter cuts. So we're just going to dig them in and go ahead and get it started. There we go. So when you after you cut it, you must want to make sure you go back. You might have a couple that are a little twerky, and that's okay. But we're pretty close here. So what we do now is get this other guy, get this side going. Make sure, just double check 1, 2.5 you're in, and then you can actually I like to dive in this way. Just want to try to get that as straight as possible. So there you go, that easy. So we'll go ahead and start getting these lined up, but you know, that's basically what we're going to look like in the end once we glue it together. So we'll start. I'll show you the gluing process here in just a sec. Alright guys, so let's start the gluing process. First thing I like to do is just get some regular 91% isopropyl alcohol. And I just like to do a quick once over on the edge, just to make sure we don't have any contaminants on there that'll screw up our glue, release agent, dirt, whatever. Get that all off. Just a quick wipe. So the key to getting a good clean glue all the way around, making these things look factory, is where you start and where you finish. And obviously you want that to all lay down naturally. So you can try to line it up with where you were when you cut it. It's not going to really affect the performance of the tire. You can pretty much line up any pin to any pin. But we want to take our time and be real slow and specific. Obviously you want to use a good glue. Honestly, I've had pretty good luck with just your standard like out of Walgreens type CA glue. Works just fine. You know, these tire glues are good, but they're a little more expensive. But you know, with this one, I'm just going to go ahead and use your standard CA glue. So usually what I like to do is get about maybe an inch or so worth of glue on there. Be sure to get some on the pins. And you just really want to take your time on this first one and just really line up those pins good. Make sure the bead is lined up good. Get a nice clean seam. And let's just hold that there for a few seconds. Make sure everything bonds up well. And that looks pretty good there. All right, so we're started, and it looks pretty good from there. So from this point, all I do is I kind of pull this tire aside. Now, when you're first starting this, you might want to only do like an inch or two at a time, but as I've gotten a little bit better, I can do a little bit longer sections. So just get some glue on that edge. Make sure all those pins have some glue. You don't want to put too much because you'll leak through and get a little bit of a run. And if you do, that's okay. It's not going to affect the performance. But you just kind of hold it and roll it together, trying to keep that seam as clean as possible. Make sure the pins are lining up. You can see there I have a little bit of a drop, but you know, that ain't gonna hurt nothing. And just kind of go till you get to the end of your section that you glued. Looks like this one ran a little bit on the top of the tire, but again, that's totally okay. It's not going to affect anything. And I just like to kind of scrunch it in, hold it for a few seconds, make sure that stuff seats. Alright, looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going here.
Yeah, bringing you another disturbing creation from the mind of one sick and who can't tell the difference and gets stupefied. And I've been waiting my whole life for just one rock, and all I needed was just one rock. And can you say that you don't give a rock? I myself stupefied, coming back again. All I wanted was just one rock, one tiny little innocent rock. And when I feel like I'm shit out of luck.
So I usually like to leave about an inch and a half for the final. So I'm going to just close up this little section here first, because that's about the trickiest part. Again, just hold it for a few seconds. Get that glue set up. So usually on this last part, I like to kind of hold it like this. Just pinch it apart. Fill in that last little area there. And then kind of bring it in like this. Squish it in and then let it come out and mate up together. There you go. Perfect. So there you go, man. Just like that. So we'll go back and check all this. I usually like to let it set for 10-15 minutes, just kind of let all the glue dry, and then, you know, flip it inside out and make sure that all looks pretty good. So yeah, there you go. All right, we'll do some comparisons here in a minute and just, you know, clean this up, make sure it looks all good. Okay guys, this tire's been drying for a few minutes. Looks really good, nice and strong. Always like to flip it inside out. And you should be able to handle the tire like that. If you can't handle the tire like that and it's falling apart, you got some problems with your glue. But I usually just like to go in and check this seam. Just pull it apart a little bit and make sure there's no light coming through, and if there is, you can make some repairs at that point. But it looks like we did a pretty good job on this one. So yeah, now one thing you got to keep in mind is you've now got here's your original width, and here's your new width. So you can see that you got a nice slim tire. You're gonna have a bigger, heavier contact patch on that. When you're crawling up the rock, it's gonna grip really nicely. But one thing you got to consider is your foams when you're doing this. If you take a regular, this is actually a CI 6-inch narrow comp cut with the soft outer. So this will be for the front. And you can see how wide this front is compared to the tire. So if you put this in, I'm not going to do this real nice. I'm just going to kind of throw it in for now. But you put this in there like this. I mean, your sidewall's okay, but you got this really weird bunch that's coming out all the way around. And you can see how the tire kind of comes out like this. So what I do to correct that is I just take the outer foam, and let's call it, I don't know, maybe 1/4 inch, 5/8 maybe, and I just go around, try to make it as clean as possible. And I just got to narrow this outer. So now when you throw that in there, we'll try to seat this one a little nicer. Try to get it centered in there. You know, some people like comp cut, some people like regular. It's just your personal preference, man. Don't tell anybody, don't let anybody tell you what you want. You go try it and you decide for yourself. But you can see now that tire is a lot more narrow. We'll actually put a tuning ring around the outside of that, and I meant to grab that, but I didn't. But yeah, so you're gonna have a nice nice compression here. It's not too thin. It's just about right. So get the wheels mounted up on these and show you what they look like. Okay guys, well here's our final product. Nice clean narrowing job. Happen to go on a set of deluxe wheels, 4 loaded dice, so you can see there's a little bit of a cavity in there. But came out super clean, super nice. Need to break in just a little bit, but these are comp ready. Just slap them on and go. So I'll get these shipped out to Jordan. And you guys, if you feel free to you know, send me a PM if you have any questions. But hope you guys learned something, and thanks for watching. Joe Perea, GA Fab, Team Mod 6 Racing. Thanks.
Oh,